Cut through the noise. Unapologetic, unfiltered, and fiercely independent. This is Uncle Hoz, where common sense meets global politics.
Good evening. It's Hoz, as usual, trying to make sense of the world, and I wanted to do a end-of-year video to try and catch up with everything that's happened for the last, since the 7th of October, really, more so than anything else in 2023. We're on day 450 at the moment of what's happening in Gaza. I am still every day waking up to another nightmare out of Gaza, one atrocity after another. And the thing that kills me, and it does kill me inside, is the silence of world leaders, the silence of politicians in the West. Literally every single day you can imagine, there is a massacre taking place. There are people being killed in tents. In the last few days, we've had 3 babies dead from the cold because they just don't have heating. 3 babies died, frozen to death, basically, effectively unable to stay warm enough. Their parents are unable to keep them warm, and they've died. That is the state that we're in. And on top of that, today, or this last day or so, the Israelis destroyed the last remaining hospital in northern Gaza. Not a single politician in the West has said a single word about it. It's normalized. Israel is above international law. Israel can do whatever it wants. No one in the West is allowed to say anything. The UK government, the American government, fully occupied and totally complicit. There are F-35 airplanes that would be unable to fly if the parts that the UK government is sending there were withheld. We're not withholding anything. We're actually participating in the genocide as the British government. And as such, our elected representatives have brought a stain on the soul of our country. And they do all of this in the name of Israel, who has the right to defend itself. No one has the right to defend themselves by murdering men, women, and children. There are 45 to 50,000 people dead, and according to the Lancet report, 4 times that number are going to be killed indirectly. So that means the numbers are 225,000 people. That's just Gaza. Israel has now attacked Lebanon and is in a ceasefire with Lebanon at the moment, and yet every day I'm watching them commit crimes inside the Lebanese territory. Now, that was supposed to be a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, and the Lebanese army was supposed to come down into the south, Janub, and basically hold positions so that Hezbollah doesn't have to do anything and will remain in a ceasefire. Now, I know that a message has gone, because it's on Twitter, that Hezbollah have said if Israel on the last day is sitting anywhere other than outside the agreed areas, if they're not withdrawn back behind the blue line, as it's called, then Hezbollah is going to restart again. They have been absolutely fair. They have actually not done anything. There has been provocation after provocation against Lebanon, against targets in Lebanon, and Hezbollah has done nothing. People think it's a sense of cowardice that they're not doing anything. The reality is this. They're letting the Lebanese army prove to the Lebanese people that they are incapable and or unable or don't want to do anything about the state of Israel, to show their complicity in the conflict with the Israelis. That means when this thing kicks off, there's no one that can turn around and say, oh, the Lebanese army should do this, that, and the other, because the Lebanese army has done nothing so far. I've seen roads ripped up, as in like they've got these tractors that go down the middle of a road, throw a steel, hook into the road and just tear up the roads. And it's been followed by a tank as well. They're not doing that in Israel. They're doing that in southern Lebanon. They're destroying the roads and infrastructure of Lebanon, southern Lebanon, because they can, because they know that the Hezbollah has promised not to do anything. So let's see what happens there. Let's move on to Syria. Syria has been liberated from Assad by the Al-Qaeda al-Nusra Front, who are now called the HTS. What's killed me more than anything else is the number of people who are not Syrian, who've got nothing to do with Syria, that are sitting here and cheerleading what's going on in Syria. You're cheerleading and you're not Syrian. That winds me up. If a Syrian is cheerleading what's going on, it's his country or her country, and I respect their right to do that. But if you're not Syrian, mind your own business. If you want to turn around and go and have a word with, turning someplace into a Sharia law and turn the place into a caliphate, go back to your countries that mostly are Muslim countries. Try that out back home. See how long your heads remain on your shoulders. Try doing that in Bangladesh and see if the security forces allow you to continue walking the streets. Try doing that in Pakistan. See if you carry on walking the streets. Because what you're doing is you are supporting Al-Qaeda, you're supporting ISIS, who have taken off that clothes off and now added themselves into a suit. They haven't changed as people. They're all still the same people. I've sat there and I gave the benefit of the doubt to people who supported this government, this new regime, and have said, let them have an opportunity to prove that they can do the right thing. All I've seen them doing is try to control the country, but they've got people inside their government, undercover or not undercover, they know what they're doing, and they're literally chopping people's heads off. They're going around shooting people. People are just getting murdered. Now, a directive has come from the HTS government. People have said, carry on with operations like that, but please don't video them anymore. Don't let anyone see what you're doing, because it's harming us. So they did that at the beginning to terrorize people so that no one wants to fight them. But now that they've got control, they're saying, don't do it, but kill anyone that you can kill, because we don't want anyone standing up to us, but do it quietly so it can't be used in the Western press. This government has turned around and said it doesn't have a problem with Israel. It wants to have peaceful relations with Israel. How can Syria, a bulwark of the last 70-odd years of Arab nationalism, that fought all those wars, along with Jordan, along with Egypt, along with all the other countries, against the state of Israel and its expansionism, turn around and now say, we want to have peace? It's disgusting. It means you're selling the Palestinian cause down the river, just like the Jordanians have, just like the Egyptians have. That is a problem for people. People don't understand it. Israel is an ever-expanding empire. It doesn't want to stop. It's taken the Golan Heights in 1967. It's now taken Mount Hernon or Vernon or something that is on the border with Lebanon, and it's taken Lebanese territory on those mountains. It's taken those lands. It's taken more lands on the inside of the bottom of the Golan Heights as well, and it's trying to take over the source of the river that goes into the Jordan and goes into Syria. Those are important things for the country, the national security of countries, and Israel's just taken. Then on top of that, you've got Turkey and the Kurds and the Americans. The Turks have taken Aleppo and have taken over that area for themselves. The Kurds have taken northeast and have kept it all this time. Anything west or east of the Euphrates River is theirs and whatever else. They're not going to give it up, and they don't want to integrate with anyone. Syria is going to get divided. Turkish, Kurdish, American, Israeli, and maybe some Syrian people can have some of their land. That is the effect and impact of what's happened. A proud nation is now divided along countries that have invaded and taken over and are using each other as the excuse to occupy this country. The Turks are using the Kurds as a reason to occupy Syria. The Kurds are not going to go because the Turks are there. Israelis are going to take over the land because they don't trust Syrians. Everyone's just using the excuse to gobble up as much of Syria as they can. It's disgusting. But that is the state of affairs for Syria. I feel sorry for all the Syrian friends that I've got, because I was hoping to God that when this government came in, it would be a change, and it would be a change for better that would be more inclusive, because that's what they said they're going to do. But it's turned out they're not inclusive, and they're going to be very exclusive, because they are murdering Alawites. They are murdering anyone who doesn't agree with them. They're getting them tied up to poles with their hands, getting kids or young men to start howling like dogs, standing on them in groups of 10 or 20, jumping up and down on them, kicking them in the head for having the temerity to not be the same as them. That's all, nothing else. They just don't happen to be their sect. And while this Arab nation decides to divide itself along sectarian lines, and this is not just for Syria, this is for all the Arab world, while you choose to make a sectarian issue of Islam and the Muslim world, all you're doing is dividing and letting other people conquer you. The amount of hatred that exists between Arabs, Shia, Sunni, this, that, Christian, and whatever else, that is what makes you into a weak people. That is what makes you the prey of hunters. Hunters are only interested in gobbling up and keeping you divided. There is literally 200 to 300 million Muslims that live in this area, including all the way from North Africa, all the way to Iran. There's 200 or 300 million people. If you include Turkey, it's over 350, 400 million people that are supposed to be part of this ummah, this Muslim world that is now divided, and people are spitting blood at each other. And all you're doing is making life easier for people to come in, conquer you, divide you, and keep you fractured from each other so that they can gobble you up. I'm going to stop there because I need to talk about Yemen. The Yemeni people are the bravest people in the whole of this conflict. They have not stopped fighting on behalf of Gaza. They have not stopped. Since day one, they have not stopped. They are getting bombed to smithereens. They've got no axe to grind with anyone except the axe on behalf of humanity. That is who they're fighting for. They've made it their business to make sure that business as usual does not carry on while there is a genocide taking place in Gaza. That's all they've said. Stop the genocide in Gaza and we will stop firing missiles at you. We will stop the conflict directly. There's a film called June. There's a race of people called the Fremen. They're a people of the desert. They're the greatest warriors there is. They have the courage of lions. That is what they are. The Yemeni people have the courage of lions in the face of the most brutal military you've ever seen in the world to date. The Americans, the British, the Israelis are bombing them, and they're saying, we don't care. We will not stop. That's what Yemen is about. That is why the Yemenis are the bravest people. Because they don't care what the consequences are for themselves as a nation, as a people. They will not let business be as usual. They've shut down Bab el-Mandeb. They've shut it down, and they've not allowed any ships to go to a port that is a port of Eilat or something in Israel. They've stopped it from having anything going in, because that's the port that they were using to help them conquer and kill people in Gaza. The American Navy has had its ass handed to it, and it's moved its aircraft carriers and its cruisers and destroyers, whatever else, miles away from Yemen, because the Yemenis have been targeting them. They can't do anything about them. That's just the way it is. The Yemenis are not willing to bend their head, go on their knees. They are fighting and will carry on fighting to the bitter end. And the bitter end for them will be that Gaza will not be genocided anymore. That is the difference between Yemen and other countries. There was a comment that was made by some reporter to a Yemeni general. And they said to him, are you talking to the Americans through back channels? And the Yemeni general turned around and said, and this is brilliant, he goes, we're talking with them with ballistic missiles. That's how they're talking to them. They're using the ballistic missile channel to talk to the Americans. They're the most courageous people on this planet Earth. They have shown themselves to be an exemplary human race. Because unlike everyone else who's chosen to ignore, go to sleep, it's not my fight, I don't want to get involved, they've got themselves involved without any gain for them. The only gain for them is that they can go to sleep at night saying, we did our part for Gaza, for Palestine, and for humanity. We did not allow them to carry on doing what they want to do. I could not be prouder if I could turn around and say I'm a Yemeni right now. The bravest of the brave. I'm going to stop talking about Yemen. I want to talk about Iran. Iran has tried its best since 1979, when it was in a situation where the revolution took place. And people don't understand the situation in Iran. A revolution took place, and there was the Communist Party, and there was the Islamic core of people who were fighting to remove the Shah. The communists actually were very useful in helping to remove the Shah. And the Americans chose not to support the communists because they felt if the communists were supported at the end of the revolution, it would align Iran with Russia and would take it to the sphere of the Russian world. And because of that, they chose to support the Islamic Republic. The problem with supporting the Islamic Republic was it was an unknown entity to them, and they thought communists would be worse than the Islamic, revolutionaries. Then what happened was Iran had students that attacked the American embassy and took it over. Now, what people don't understand is that America's biggest operational CIA office was the Iranian embassy in Tehran. That embassy, the American embassy in Iran, was the headquarters for all operations that were taking place in the whole of Asia. So it was the HQ. There was paperwork there that was the gold dust of everything they've done. They were shredding papers. The American staff was shredding papers and were trying to destroy all the evidence of all these CIA files and whatever else. The students took all those CIA files, the shredded ones, put them in bags, took them to high schools all over Tehran and said, this is yours, put it back together. Put back these documents together. And just like a jigsaw puzzle, the Iranian students did that. The Iranian high school kids did that. And this created the paperwork that showed that America was involved in Operation Ajax, that showed that America was involved in an operation to stop the first democratically elected Iranian republic from existing. Why? Because the CIA did not want to see Iran be a republic. It liked compliant, one-man rule people that they can make deals with, they can tell him what to do and give him money, and he does what they want them to do. That's why they didn't want Mossadegh to stay in power. Because of what Iran did on that period of time, the United States of America has become the most implacable enemy of Iran. Iran doesn't have a problem with America if America was to stop interfering, causing revolutions, causing problems, and was to actually treat Iranian people and the government of Iran with the same respect that it pays any European country. But they've chosen to make Iran an enemy. And by making Iran an enemy, Iran has turned around and become the pariah of the media in America. And it has been 40-odd years since 1979 where Iran has suffered under sanctions. And because Iran suffered under sanctions, it learned to become a self-sustained economy, a self-sustained government, a self-sustained nation. Economically, they didn't have the easiest of lives, and the life of Iranians right now is a misery in comparison to other countries. But the difference is there's not a single military base from any country in the world in Iran. There are no American soldiers or Russian soldiers or any other kind of variety of soldiers in Iran occupying and saying, let me have a military base in your country. The Iranians are the only country that can quite proudly say that we're not an occupied nation. Israel would not survive without America for 10 minutes. 10 minutes it wouldn't last. The Americans occupy Iraq. The Americans occupy Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain. Everywhere you look in the Gulf, there's either an American or a British force. And in Qatar, there's a Turkish base as well. Iran doesn't have that. That is the difference between them and all of these occupied countries. Now, the thing is, there are countries that don't want to be occupied. And because Iran has gone through what it has gone through in the last 45 years, and it doesn't want anyone else to go through what it's gone through, it has chosen to support any country that wants to be liberated from the shackles of American hegemony. That's why Iran supports Lebanon. That's why Iran supported Syria. That's why Iran supported Iraq. That's why Iran supported Yemen. Iran will support any country that is willing to stand up and say, I don't want to live on my knees to you, America. They've given them the equipment, the resources, the training, and it's up to those countries to then stand up for themselves and fight their own battles. The saddest thing that anyone can say to Lebanese people is that you are a proxy of Iran. How dare you say that to them? How dare you have the gall to say to Lebanese people that you are a proxy of Iran? They are the bravest people who have stood up and fought tooth and nail and kicked the Israeli army, the fourth largest, most powerful bullshit army in 2006, was kicked out of Lebanon by Hezbollah, by Lebanese, not Iranians. So how dare you say that they are proxies? They've had support. They've had training. They're given equipment. But they're not proxies. Those same people don't want to live under the yoke of an American empire. And Iran has made a point of it. We are going to support all those countries that don't want to be under the yoke of the American empire. And that's what they've done. And they'll continue to do that. That's not going to stop. Syria has fallen. The axis of resistance is dead. No, it isn't. The axis of resistance has weakened, but it's not dead, because while there are still people living and breathing in Gaza fighting against the Israelis, that resistance exists. Yahya Sinwar was killed. How long ago was he killed? How many months ago was he killed? Have Hamas stopped fighting? Has the resistance stopped fighting? They're killing Israeli soldiers every day still. So that is what you need to understand. The resistance only ends when there are no more people willing to resist, when there is no one willing to stand up to the hegemony. At the moment, people are still seething with anger. They're fuming. Their blood is boiling. And people like myself, who are watching what's happening to Gaza and what's happening in Syria and what they're doing in Lebanon, you've not given me something to make me feel at peace. And there are millions of us around the world that have seen Israel for what it is. Israel is a country that has broken every international norm. It has broken every rule you can think of. They have committed a Holocaust in Gaza. They have committed a genocide in Gaza. They have ethnically cleansed parts of Gaza. They've destroyed every single hospital in Gaza. They've already destroyed every single mosque. They've already destroyed every school. They've already destroyed every university. These are all international war crimes. Their Prime Minister and former Minister of Defense are both wanted men for war crimes. International war crime warrants exist for these people. No, Israel is not a good country. Israel is a warmonger. And Israel has suffered the biggest loss of all. And people need to understand what that loss is. Don't think that what's happening is a good thing for Israel. The number of young people in America and around the world who are of Jewish faith and descent, who may have, before this conflict, said, Israel is right, we're being victims, this, that, and the other. It's now obvious to the whole world. It's absolutely obvious to the whole world that what Israel has done is wrong. There is no support left for Israel, for the state of Israel and the idea of Israel anymore. Every single video and picture of every single kid that comes out, every single one of them is another nail in the coffin of Israel. Israelis are not welcome anywhere they go anymore. Everywhere they go around the world, if they find out they're Israelis, they tell them to fuck off. Go away. We don't want you here. Where they were welcome before the 7th of October, because there hadn't been such genocidal maniacs, people didn't know any better. But now everyone can see what they are. They are genocidal people. And there is no way that anyone can turn around and say that they don't know what Israel is doing. It is being broadcast in 4K across every mobile platform there is, whether it's Instagram, Rumble, YouTube, X, Twitter, call it what you will. Everywhere are videos of babies with their heads cut off, blown off, disabled, mangled body parts, the amount of children that have got arms missing, legs missing. There has never been anything as atrocious as behavior towards humanity as what Israel has done. Israel is going to pay that price because everyone can see who they are. And everyone can see that their countries have been politically taken over by Israel. There is no doubt left in anyone's mind. Before the 7th of October, if I was to say, Israel controls my country's politics, controls it, yeah, I'd be called an anti-Semitic, tinfoil wearing idiot that doesn't know and I hate Jews and this, that and the other. The silence of my Prime Minister and the one before him of the opposition party proves the point that it doesn't matter who's in 10 Downing Street. Whoever it is Israel's man. Whoever is in the Foreign Office is Israel's man. And that is exactly the same in the United States. Donald Trump has picked the most Israeli-friendly cabinet you could ever imagine in your life. It's obvious now. They've taken over. I can't be called an anti-Semite anymore because that's the reality we live in. You can see it for yourself. Yes, there's no way anyone can tell you otherwise. They have literally taken over and are allowing Israel to commit genocide every single day. And no one and nothing is doing anything about it. The media have said nothing. The BBC. I'm the National Election Coordinator for the Workers' Party of Britain. I was on the BBC show called Politics Today. It is the preeminent political show that the BBC has. I was supposed to be on that show for 15 minutes. I was supposed to talk to the reporter for 5 minutes to explain a little bit about the Workers' Party of Britain. And then after that, I'm supposed to join a panel of people from all the other parties to talk to them about how the Workers' Party are X, Y, and Z. This was our one opportunity that was afforded to us in a complete media blackout that the BBC put on the Workers' Party, because we are the only party that has stood up for the Palestinian cause, and it's never, ever wavered. We have never, ever wavered in our fight on behalf of the Palestinians. The BBC, on 3 minutes and 32 seconds, asked me the question of why would you not want Labour to take over from the Tory government? I turned around and said, because I don't see any difference between either of them. Both of them are going to continue the genocide. One is committing it now, another one's going to commit it later. And within 30 seconds, my interview was wrapped up and I was thanked, and I was then kicked out of the offices of the BBC. And I was told by the producer, Mr. Shaffi, that'd be the last time you're on the BBC. So that is the control and power that Israel has over the BBC, where I'm not allowed to tell the truth. I'm not allowed to say that a genocide is taking place. I'm not allowed to be upset about the fact that I'm protesting the killing of women and children in Gaza. How dare I say anything against Gaza, against the Israelis for murdering men, women and children? How dare I do that? That's what I did. And the Israelis have control over Channel 4 News, ITV. It's a whole raft of control that they have. It's as if you're not allowed to say anything to them. Anything you say against Israel will cause a backlash. I don't understand why it exists the way it does, but they are in charge of my country. It's the same with AIPAC and Israeli first politicians that all bow their heads, and the first order of business for any rule or law or this, that, and the other that's going to come about is, what will be the impact of my relationship with the state of Israel if I vote for this clause or don't vote for this clause? When you're thinking of Israel first instead of America first, and you're talking about make America great again, and you can't do that because your first opinion has got to be what's going to happen to Israel first, you've lost control of your country. This is happening everywhere. And that's why the world recognizes that this is Israel now. People understand that Israel has manifested itself as the supreme power. It's obvious, because there is no way that anyone with any decency or humanity could watch what's happening in Gaza and not be moved to say enough is enough. Stop killing these babies. How many bodies do we need to see hanging up from a building that's been blown up and all you've got left is the torso and the legs are missing or shredded? How many of those would you see? So with that in mind, I've spoken about the 5 or 6 countries that I wanted to in the Middle East, and I'm going to draw it to a close and say, I really do hope that 2025 is a different year to the one that we've had so far. I really do hope that there is a permanent ceasefire in Palestine. And if there isn't, I wish upon Israel exactly everything that it's done to its neighbors, because I'm a great believer in reciprocity. Either have a one-state solution and you want to have a greater Israel, I don't have a problem with it. You want to take over Lebanon, Syria, all this? Sure, go for it. But you make it one state, one vote per person, and you respect people's cultures. You can't take away their cultures, because that's what they want. They want to have a greater Israel. If you think as Israelis, you're going to go into Lebanon, Syria, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, kick everyone out, and what, everyone's going to get disappeared to other countries so you guys can have this a grand, whatever the Germans used to call it, Lieberfroschen or whatever it was, extra land for yourselves? You're out of your minds. Stay in Palestine. Allow the Palestinians to live. Give them their right to exist freely, and everything will be fine. You don't do that, you're never, ever going to have peace. And Yemen will become 2 Yemens. And don't think that America can do some kind of super job for you. America will walk away from you when it starts to hurt. They may be able to bomb places, but the world's economy will come crashing down around everyone's ears if America chooses to engage with Iran. Every single oil refinery in the Middle East, in the Gulf, will get destroyed. There'll be no more oil going anywhere for years. It's going to take 10 to 15 years to rebuild everything to be able to get anywhere near the capacity it is at the moment. It will be World War III. May end up becoming a nuclear exchange. So that's the year 2024. I'm going to end it there and leave it as that. I wish you all a fantastic 2025. And I really do hope we end up with peace. And I hope that all the governments in the area look after their nationals, look after their people, treat them with mercy, treat them with kindness, try and help them as much as you can, because that's the only way you're going to improve the lot of everyone in this area. Thank you for listening.
That's it for this episode of Uncle Hoz. Remember, truth has no agenda, and neither do we. Follow on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and X at Uncle Hoz. Let's keep the conversation going.